Hi everyone, Heather here with the California AfterSchool Network, and welcome to our first Fireside Chat of 2021. So we are excited to have you all join us this year. We've got some big news if you haven't heard it yet, and this is just the start of many Fireside Chats to come this year. So we're excited to have, as we usually do, Michael Funk from the California Department of Education Expanded Learning Division and Jen Dietrich with the Partnership for Children and Youth. So with that, we'll jump right into it. Probably by now, most of you have heard the exciting news that the governor put $4.6 billion into his budget for one-time spending that could potentially be used for expanded learning and summer programs. But as with anything, that is a nuanced issue. And so Jen and Michael are going to talk us through a little bit of those details. But before we get into that, I just want to say that part of that money being put into the budget is a recognition of the hard work and the dedication of all of our staff, our site coordinators, our line staff, our program managers throughout the entire state. The work that you've been doing for almost the last year now has shown, it's been recognized, and so there is now being money and investment put into that. So thank you for your continued hard work, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael to get us started.
Thanks, Heather and Jen. So happy 2021. It feels like we're already to the end of January, and it feels like it's been a long year already. Where do we start? Somewhere in December, I received a call, an email from Assemblymember Gonzalez's staff. She is San Diego south to the border, and other people also were contacted by the Assembly member staff, basically to talk about an idea they had for legislation. And the bottom line was, we'd like to talk about this, and I was going to be out like for the next week to 10 days. So we set up a meeting for between Christmas and New Year's. And a handful of people gathered with their staff, and their staff opened up the conversation describing what they wanted to see happen with the bill. And I was incredibly struck by the language that they used, because I don't think I could have articulated expanded learning any more clearly than what the staff was saying, what they wanted to see. They wanted to see support for children to heal socially and emotionally, not just academics. They wanted children to experience hands-on learning, project-based. They wanted to see like the best of what happens in expanded learning and after school be with how this is designed. And it just was really beautiful to hear. And just to what Heather said, that's a recognition of the work that we have done, you have done during the pandemic, the work supporting our most vulnerable children in so many different ways. And now the system realizing what kind of an asset expanded learning is and how necessary expanded learning staff are in supporting children and families in the reopening of schools, whatever that looks like. So that was great encouragement. AB 104 has been amended a few times. Some of the language that has been talked about in those meetings and conversations with myself and some others has made it in. But of course, there's the legislative process. So AB 104 means it's an assembly bill with a number. There's a parallel process in state government called the budget trailer bill. And that's actually written by the Department of Finance, which is under the governor's office. And the budget trailer bill, its intent is to give definition to how allocations in the budget should be spent and for what purpose. So when the governor released his budget and had $4.6 billion in a category called expanded learning time and summer school, the Department of Finance notified us and others, we're going to have budget trailer bill language out to talk about how that will be implemented in a few weeks. And that has come out as well. And all these are publicly accessible, and we'll make sure that when the fireside chat is sent out, that there'll be, Heather, we can do that, right? You can get links to the budget trailer bill and AB 104. And so typically then there's a little bit of a dance between the legislature and Department of Finance, and ultimately the legislature has to pass the budget trailer bill. So there's a lot of negotiation that goes on. But the bills say different things. And I want to just start by saying that we believe AB 104, the language is very, very much favorable to our philosophy of serving and working with children and students. It calls out currently that districts are strongly encouraged to partner with existing ACEs and 21st century grants. It doesn't require it, but it strongly encourages. It strongly encourages community partners. And that is in this version of the bill. The bill has a long trail ahead of it, but those are encouraging sites. Currently, in both the Department of Finance budget trailer bill and AB 104, these are not grants that districts compete for. These are allocations through a formula for districts. That's still being negotiated, how that's going to work. Both bills call for some type of template to be created that districts would have to fill out. What that looks like has not been determined. So if you get the drift here, what I'm saying is there's a long trail ahead of us, and it might not even end up being $4.6 billion. That's the governor's proposal. And there's a lot of negotiation about what happens in the budget. In both bills, there's lots of allowable costs, if whatever that item looks like: mental health services, increased nutrition services, more staff training and development. So it's likely that even if $4.6 billion gets passed in the budget process, districts will choose to use that in a variety of ways. So it would not be true or accurate to say the governor put $4.6 billion in his budget for expanded learning, especially as we use that term. I'm going to go on a little bit in the weeds, Heather and Jen, to make sure that our ecosystem, expanded learning ecosystem here, understands some of the nuance of why the title expanded learning time was somewhat concerning to me when I first saw it come out. In other parts of the country, the phrase expanded learning time, those three words, has a specific meaning. And it goes back several years to No Child Left Behind, when states or districts could apply for waivers for certain requirements in No Child Left Behind. Waiver 11 was called expanded learning time, and it allowed states or districts to use their 21st century community learning center after school money for longer school days or more school days. So they were expanding learning time, but what it really meant was expanding instructional minutes. So when I saw the title of that bill, I was a bit concerned. And sure enough, when the Department of Finance trailer bill came out, one of the options clearly for districts is to use the funding for increased or expanding instructional minutes. It's very specific. Now, it's not a requirement. There's other options they can choose, but the Department of Finance bill is kind of like a buffet of options that are available for districts on how they're going to use the funding. And one of them is all children spend more time in school, longer school days, or more school days. There's a lot of opinions about that. There's a lot of thoughts about that. And of course, what children are experiencing now, if to fulfill instructional minutes, varies greatly by district and by location. And we all know that many of our children don't necessarily want more time doing what they're doing now. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think it would really be important for all of us to stay in touch, for you to tune into the fireside chats. At the end, Heather and Jen will tell you how to link up with their communications so you can be in touch. I think the what I don't want you to forget, the main point I want to say is whatever happens at the state level between the governor's office, the Department of Finance, and the legislature, whatever happens, the decisions of how this money is spent will take place at the local level. That's what we know. There'll be options. Decisions will be made locally. And I'm going to take us a little deja vu back to last summer when we said, get a seat at the table. Some of you said, well, if I can't get a seat, I'm going to put up my own table. I mean, I heard that this afternoon. The point we're trying to make is people have a deep respect for the work that we've done in expanded learning. People believe that you're essential to really bringing children back in a way that's really necessary, in a way that supports them in their whole child. People will respect you. You have clout, you have capital. But if you don't show up and use it, you will not have an influence of how the money is decided to be spent at the local level. And you may not be happy with decisions that are made. You know in your heart, you know what our children need. You know that because that's what you've been providing. And so there's lots of interests that have representation. Most of the time, our children don't. So that's where you come in. So I'm going to stop there. I'll say a couple words in closing. I know that's when I've had conversations with others and had showed up on some Zoom calls with some other parts of the state. I've gotten way into the weeds of what the language in these bills say. And I have some more of those scheduled this week. But for the sake of this fireside chat, things are fluid, things will shift. There's some really good opportunities. There's some good news. Stay in the game. So I'll turn it back to Heather.
Thanks, Michael. So since there is going to be a lot of work done at the local level, we wanted to chat a little bit with Jen. Not only does she work for Partnership for Children and Youth, but also with CA3. And so she can talk a little bit about that organization and what they do, but both CA3 and CAN are here to support as everyone is navigating this advocacy work at the local level. So Jen, I will just go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heather and Michael. Things are moving so fast, and we are so lucky to have a group of people who are working on this even during holiday breaks and whatnot. But what I can say is that when we've had conversations in the legislature, they need to know what expanded learning programs, what you all have done during this time, how you've been called to the front lines, the ways in which you've found to serve students and families in new ways, despite more barriers. They need to hear those stories, and they need to hear about the impact that you've had. And also, what are the remaining needs? How can we move forward, and what will be needed? So at the California AfterSchool Advocacy Alliance, we're a coalition of after-school and summer providers and child advocacy organizations working together to help represent the students and families and staff of expanded learning programs in California. And we have been in conversation on the budget trailer bill, AB 104, and a whole lot of other budget proposals that are in the mix right now. But we're trying to highlight one, that you all have done the work, you are the experts, you can help inform and educate the legislature and the administration in how things can move quickly to serve the students who need it most effectively. And so we've we're sending letters of support and outlining our priorities, as Michael has already pointed out, leveraging the current system, the system of support, all of the community partnerships and critical relationships that you have with students and families that make a difference and can re-engage students in a new way um, at this critical moment. And in addition to those things, we're also looking at, how these programs should be structured and how will they support the whole child and not be I think I've heard it as a drill and kill summer school remediation. That's not what we're looking for right now. So we are really encouraging folks and hopefully giving you the talking points, contact information, so that you can have these conversations at the local level, and people are already starting those conversations at the local level, but also that you can educate and inform decision makers at the state level. So we will have talking points, letters of support, contact information. We've also suggested specific language about how these proposals could move forward to improve the system. And also, as this is going on, we're also trying to highlight how at this time when expanded learning programs are so critical for the recovery of our students and our state, that the workforce, you that are running these programs and on the front lines, that you are supported and helping prioritize vaccination and professional development opportunities, and just making sure you have the financial standing to make the programs happen, keep people there, make people safe, and help us all recover. So we can, yeah, we'll share our contact information so you can sign up for updates and ways that you can find out and reach out to us if you have specific questions or you need any help. We're here at this time and want to be a resource to you all.
Great, thanks, Jen. And yes, if you are watching this on YouTube, below the video in the description, you'll find links and all sorts of information to get you connected to PCY, to CA3, to CAN, to the different legislative information. If you're watching this on the CAN website, then you should also see that information off to the side. So we're not going to throw it up on the screen and then pull it down in a second, but you should be able to find that on wherever you are viewing this video at the moment. And so, yeah, I wanted to thank you, Jen, for just sharing that, and Michael walking through what's going on at the state level, and also letting you all know that at the federal level, there's a lot moving too. Back in December, end of December, the most recent relief bill was signed, and they're, similar to CARES Act, there's a lot of funding that will go out to the local level as well. So as you are advocating for decisions in terms of the state funding, there will also be advocacy options around federal funding and the federal funding that's trickling down to the districts. And so we definitely want to continue to support you. We are working hard at the state level and the national level to continue to advocate on your behalf. One of the things that will be coming out with this fireside chat is actually a link to a survey. So we are collecting more information on the work that you've been doing throughout COVID, and the impacts of changes to policies, how that's helped you or not. So we're collecting all of that information to help continue informed policy. So we really encourage you all to take a few moments, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, to fill out that survey. There will be directions on who and how when the survey comes out. Also, in addition to all the different fact sheets that you can get from CA3, today we released our State of the State brief that talks about what has happened in the last 10 months and how expanding learning programs have been a hub of resilience during this crisis and many others. And then we also have our challenge coming up in March. And so that is hosted by CalSAC in partnership with the California AfterSchool Network and CA3 and many other partners. And so that will be virtual this year, no need to travel to Sacramento. And that is also a great option to engage with your legislators. So lots of great options and resources and materials coming your way. if you need more support from us, please do reach out to us. You'll have our contact info. We definitely want to hear what we can do to support you. We can't be in 1,000 districts, but we can help you all be in 1,000 districts across the state. So definitely please reach out and let us know. And we will be having fireside chats pretty regularly this year for the foreseeable future, especially as things are moving quickly. So maybe not weekly, but maybe every week, depending on what's going on. So expect to hear from us. And I think that covers all of my updates. So I want to, again, just thank you all for all your continued hard work during this time and for being on the front lines and for just making such a huge impact in our children's lives and their families' lives and the community's lives. We appreciate you. We can never thank you enough, but just wanted to say that, and I'll turn it over to Michael to close us out.
Thanks, Heather and Jen. I just want to take a nice dollop of urgency, just plop it on top of this dish here, because when is the challenge? What do either of you remember the dates of the challenge?
It is March 9th and 10th, or 8th.
Okay. So for context, it could be likely that decisions about the trailer bill, AB 104, and this line item in the budget will have been made before the challenge. How do we know that? Because both bills currently state that the Department of Education shall post their template onto their website for districts to articulate how they're going to use this money by April 1. Let's see, February, March. That's 2 months. It gives districts until May 1st to turn it in and programs to start June 1st. Did I catch your attention? This is an urgency bill. When it's signed, legislature passes it and it's signed by the governor, it takes place immediately instead of waiting until like either July 1 or most bills, January 1. So we have some history here. In 2002, Prop 49 was passed, but there was a provision in the proposition that was the after-school initiative. And there was a provision that the money wouldn't flow until the state budget had $1.5 billion more revenue than when the proposition was passed. It might have been a little more technical than that, but that's the layman's version. And that would trigger the money to move from 123 million to 550. And we didn't know that was going to happen. But quite frankly, in hindsight, there wasn't enough preparation for when it would happen. And so in the spring of 2006, the state controller said, we got the revenue. The money's going to drop July 1, programs open up in the fall. That was like April or May. Schools don't do that good of a job of planning for massive increases of cash and programming during the summer. So we had a quality issue for years because we didn't prepare adequately and we were scrambling. I remember I was running the Sunset Neighborhood Beacon at the time, and Oakland Unified called up and said, we're desperate for agencies that can serve as lead agencies. We don't have enough capacity. That story went all across the state. Well, this timeline makes that timeline look generous. This amount of money makes that amount of money look small. So that's your dollop of urgency to stay tuned, get ready. It's not too early to contact your community-based partners if you're with a district, or your district if you're a community-based partner, and start having this conversation. There's enough information out there. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is the state will put money in some fashion to support children coming back. So with that, as we say, lead with love. And let's go get them. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.